Hi everyone, I'm Eric,
And I'm Christopher.
and we're Grow For Me 5B. Today we're going to take you on a full garden tour in late August. So we thought we'd start our August tour right up here in the front of the house down by the road. And this is one of our floating island beds in the center of our front yard that has a grouping of birch trees that were just planted last fall. It has a drift of Walker's Low Catmint, 3 winter gem boxwoods, and 6 wee white hydrangeas. And all of these things were just planted last year. You'll see that the wee whites have been deadheaded from their first flush of blooms, and they've put on some new growth, and they're sending out another set of blooms. These are going to get probably about 2 feet tall by 2 feet wide. And we have another grouping of them up closer to the house that we'll get to in just a minute. But before we do that, let's head over to this bed over here that's blocking our electrical box. We call this the vanilla strawberry bed because the star of this bed is the vanilla strawberry hydrangea. And this hydrangea is a panicle hydrangea, so it blooms on new wood, has panicle shaped blooms that are bright white, and then they will get a flush of pink that starts from the bottom and goes to the top. And before you know it, the entire bloom will be pink. They have a beautiful dark stem, dark green foliage, underplanted with some violet night alyssum.
Eric, you pruned this really hard this year, didn't you?
I did prune it really hard, and you can see that the stems, the new growth is probably 3 or 4 feet long. So it does put on a lot of growth. If you come around this way, we have a pampas grass that's hardy for our zone. So that hasn't sent out its pampas plumes yet, but it's tremendously tall.
And I swear when we bought this, the tag said dwarf pampas grass, but maybe I just interpreted hardy as dwarf.
Maybe. Blue kazoo spirea down here, tying into the foundation bed, which we have blue kazoo spireas in. Another drift of Walker's Low Catmint. Violet night alyssum being repeated. A spilled wine weigela. This is a columnar juniper that this winter had some ice and snow damage that snapped off the leader. So it doesn't have a leader right now, but I'm thinking it might be on the way to choosing one. And on the very end here is a Thin Man arborvitae. We're trying to start a evergreen hedge, a mixed evergreen hedge as we move along this way. So this is also an arborvitae that's a spring grove arborvitae that's a cross with a cypress. So it's going to get quite large. But let's go this way and talk a little bit about this grouping of wee white hydrangeas.
There's the sun.
Yeah. Here's another grouping of wee white hydrangeas. This is about 4 of them. Again, they've been deadheaded. They're pushing their new growth. They're very happy here. They're in full sun. They do very well for us. Underplanted with a drift of Artist Blue Floss Flower, which is an annual from Proven Winners. And another annual is this annual purple fountain grass, which I love how we have this dark, weighted red foliage in our foundation bed because we do have so much green and so many green-blue hues going on. But before we go that way, Christopher, let's take a look back here. Winter gem boxwood, beautifully pruned. A little planting of Bright Lights Pink, Osteospermum. This is more of that blue kazoo to play off of the blue kazoo up there. And to my right is Denim and Lace Russian Sage. This is planted in sandy, rocky soil that barely gets any water, definitely no fertilizer. End of the season, so they're looking a little raggedy, but it smells beautiful. Not a great texture to touch, but it's a lovely perennial for this spot. To my left is a columnar Hetzi juniper, which we planted this evergreen here for one winter interest, but also to kind of soften the edge. We have a very square home, and so we're trying to use plantings to soften that up. And this really does a nice job for this severe corner that the architect kind of put in the front. Softens that right up. But let's sneak up on the small front porch right now for some containers. Shade container with coleus. This is not lime time coleus. This actually is supposed to have a dark, like a pickety edge kind of, but it doesn't have it, I think, because it gets so much shade. Pegasus wing begonia, and asparagus fern, and those match and they flank the front door. So back up to the front of the house where we have the wee whites and the artist blue, the purple fountain grass. From the front of the house, this is the blue kazoo spirea. It blooms white in the spring and it's starting to put on its fall color right now. Directly behind that is a Statia Vi, which is a David Austin rose. We planted this last year, so this is the end of its second full season in the ground. We're going to move it. I think part of the reason we're going to move it is if you look at that foliage contrast, there is no foliage contrast. So we have some plans. We're going to make a video about it. To the right are our Firelight Tidbit hydrangeas. I love this panicle hydrangea. Blooms on new wood, starts white, turns to pink. This is as big as it gets. So this is the mature size for the panicle of Firelight Tidbit. Behind that is Spilled Wine Weigela. And again, changes are coming, which we're very excited about. Behind that whole foundation bed is a small hedge of winter gem boxwoods. Right here is our tricolor beech. Our tricolor beech is in full sun facing south. It's kind of, I think, self-protecting itself by making its leaves darker. So it's kind of turned into a bicolor beech, but we still love it because we love a dark foliage tree. Underplanted with David Austin Vanessa Bell Rose, which is a superstar in our garden. Tons of blooms, beautiful fragrance, healthy, healthy rose. Walker's Low Catmint coming around the front.
Eric, from this angle, can you talk about that birch tree that's beautifully in frame right now?
The one over here,
Yes.
our favorite Royal Frost birch. The Royal Frost birch that we planted in 2020.
It looks so good.
I love that. It's a great, we planted it purposely right there so that we could see the bark from our great room window while we were sitting in the great room, and you can look out the window and see the beautiful bark during the winter and summer.
So you can see as we move into the east border that we started it off with a carpet of Irish moss. This moss was originally supposed to be a checkerboard pattern, but you can see it has kind of turned into a bit of a mishmash. But it's fun, and you can kind of walk on it a little bit to get to the hose. Underneath the Gatsby Pink Oak Leaf Hydrangea are some of the Roseanne geraniums that were divided just about a month or two ago. So they're not huge yet, but they're putting out a couple blooms, looking very healthy. Again, the Gatsby Pink Oak Leaf Hydrangea. The blooms are past their prime, but now we get to sit back and wait for the leaf color on this. The fall color is absolutely spectacular. It's almost like a leathery reddish burgundy color. It's beautiful on this corner in the fall. This wild, beautiful climbing rose is Teasing Georgia from David Austin. The blooms are definitely past their prime now, but we enjoyed the way that this is kind of taken on a little bit of life of its own. Tucked underneath is a Let's Dance Sky View hydrangea, a Macrophylla hydrangea crossed with a little bit of Serrata genetics to give it a little more bud hardiness. We're looking forward to seeing how this does for us. We haven't had the best luck with Macrophyllas in the past, but I think in this protected spot, we've got a much better shot of success going into next year.
Yeah, it does get a little cold for us over the winter, the buds, because Macrophylla blooms on old wood, which means it's forming its buds for next year now. And our winters get so cold that sometimes those buds freeze off and die.
Yes.
But this new breeding technique has them bloom on new wood as well. So it's a mix of old and new wood.
This is a group of Checkmark Trilogy Weigela that Eric had pruned down for some reshaping in the early spring after it did its bloom. It's now looking great, much more vertical. The branches were a little bit wavy, I think, coming out of the nursery can. But next year we're looking forward to the tricolor blooms on this. This is some Royale Color Blaze Apple Brandy Coleus that we added towards the end of the season to give a little pop of color. We were looking for some more red in this area underneath the columnar Scotch pine that put on a good amount of growth this year, looking really healthy. It is one of the super, super prickly kinds of pine. Here we have a Lime Ricky hydrangea. This is a really nice lime colored hydrangea. that is just putting out some of its new blooms again. It's splayed quite a bit in some early heavy rains, but I think it's done fantastic for us.
Yeah, and this is a new wood hydrangea, so this will bloom on new wood.
Underneath is a group of spearmint heuchera that does come back reliably. It needs a little bit of a cleanup at this point in the season, but it will come right back fresh in the spring. Brandywine viburnum, beautiful shiny leaves, waiting on the coloring to happen on these berries. They should be a mix of pink and blue. This is a variegated leaf hydrangea called,
Light o' Day.
wow, I forgot a name. That's a first. It didn't bloom for us this year with that frost that, yes, we do like to mention occasionally because it was pretty harsh on us. But it's a beautiful variegated foliage, great form. So hopefully next year we get to see some of the lace
Look at
clap
this particular
blue
leaf.
foliage. Oh, that's good. That's almost like a hosta foliage. Very cool. This is a dappled willow, the kind that you find very inexpensively at your big box store. And it had gotten so big that I decided last year I was going to tree form it. The other option was it was going to the ground to start over. So I did the tree form, and it provided us our only shade bed on our new property. The fact that we don't have big trees, we don't have a lot of shade, so we made some shade with this shrub. It's a little bit of maintenance trying to keep all of the new growth inside away, but it's been very successful. We have a Hinoki cypress doing well in here, limelight prime, a mixture of Brunnera, Virginia, hosta, including Diamond Lake, Coast to Coast, and Neptune. We have some hellebores, which the only place we've ever purchased hellebores is Trader Joe's, which I think is really funny, but they always have great hellebores. We tuck them in there. They're super healthy. That's the darkest foliage you see.
Is Trader Joe's a nationwide grocery store, or is that just in certain areas of the country?
It's nationwide.
Okay.
Past their prime, up here are some meadow rue, which I'll be pulling seeds off of very shortly, and then I'll take those down to the ground.
There's a little reminiscence of what the blooms look like right here.
Oh yeah. The goal here is that this is eventually going to thicken up and create a wall to cover up the siding and also provide a backdrop for this hedge of Invincibelle ruby hydrangeas that have gone to their kind of mauvey, dusty green. But
I love that. I love the faded bloom on them.
They're also putting out new growth, which is great this time of year.
Yeah. The great thing about the Proven Winners Invincibelle series is they all rebloom. So if I had deadheaded this, they send out even more blooms, like kind of like the wee whites out front.
Below that is just a little drift of two kinds of heuchera. It's actually the dressed up ball gown mixed with the Primo Pistachio Ambrosia. The only difference that I've been able to find between them is that the one is a little bit more of a ruffly, that's the ball gown, and the more rounded lobes come from the Pistachio Ambrosia. Underneath, the Winecraft Gold Smoke Bush that is supposed to cap out at 6 feet, but has decided not to do so. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. This color is a must-have. We have Pink Shebley Lamium. We have a peony, the Dark Side of the Moon Astilbe. This is a Aphrodite sweet shrub. Let me reach in here and pull that bloom forward for you. We have one left for the season. There we go. That beautiful pink color falling apart into my hand. Really, really beautiful. Huge leaves on it. Eric brought this down to about 3 feet this year just because it had gotten a little bit wild. And as you can see, wild it will be. It's beautiful.
Christopher, will you talk about the hanging baskets while we're here?
Oh, the hanging baskets up on there in the kind of orb baskets that are hanging. That is the Surefire White Begonia. There are 4 planted in each of those containers with a single Wicked Witch coleus in the center. And they look really good from this angle. Below that, tucked behind, is our quick fire hydrangea standard that has gone to its fall pink color. This is a drift of Invincible Spirit 2 hydrangea that has that same dusty green bloom on it. Really, really pretty this time of year. Bobo hydrangea, another Hetzi juniper, which you can see the form when it's not trimmed the way that we have it up against the front of the house. It gets a little bit fuller and wider in general. Underneath the Gothic arch from Gardener Supply, we planted a generous Gardner rose on each side and Betty Corning clematis. Interesting fact about Betty Corning clematis, it's named after Betty Corning, who was the wife of Erasmus Corning, that the tallest building in our area, the Corning Tower, is named after. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, little fact for you.
And then here is a close-up of the generous gardener. So this is our Gothic arch from Gardener Supply. We chose this arch because the width is 6 feet, so it has a really nice wide opening, which means we can plant things like the roses and the clematis on it and still be able to get through, and there's not any of that squeezing. Admittedly, since the garden show, we have slashed off a little bit, but I think things are still looking good. It's also very tall, so even when things are growing on it, I won't hit my head or things won't brush people's head as they walk by. These both have a Bobo hydrangea in front of them. Bobo's a panicle hydrangea that blooms on new wood. They stay rather small. Sprinter boxwood. This is a creeping Veronica that blooms in the spring. You cut it back and it flushes all back, blooms again. In here we have a Campania Urn. I don't know if you can see it under all that Super Bell, but this is Tropical Sunrise Super Bell, Unplugged So Blue Salvia, and an Asparagus Fern. A drift of Magic Show Ever After, or Ever After Magic Show Veronica, which has a great bright, is that like a periwinkle blue?
Yeah.
I think it's like a periwinkle blue, which looks amazing with the foliage on this Winecraft black smoke bush. The like iridescence on there is delightful. Peachberry Ice Coral Bells. This is a blue stem grass, also known as a turkey foot grass, because when it blooms or goes to seed, it splits at the top to look like turkey feet. Behind that, on this set of trellises, is a Kinsley Ghost honeysuckle. The new growth is this brighter green that has traditional shaped leaves, and then as it ages, they get to look more eucalyptus, and it'll bloom yellow flowers in the spring. That I purchased as a quart on greatgardenplants.com probably the year before last. So it's done very well for having just started as a quart. Back in here is a celosia grown from seed. This is Heaven Sent Jacob's Ladder, which blooms in the spring. Back here, you might want to stay there. I'm going to scoot around the backside, Christopher, is Mill on the Floss, which is a David Austin rose. It's a Piketty rose, which means it has a dark pink edge around a lighter pink petal. Doing very well. Underneath this Eastern Redbud tree. The Eastern Redbud tree we're going to prune a little bit this winter, maybe thin it out a bit to ensure that, one, it maintains a beautiful shape, it has a lot of airflow through it, but also to allow more light to the things underneath. So come on through here, Christopher, and take a look down. A grouping of lantana. This is Luscious Citron Lantana from Proven Winners. Behind that is Autumn Joy Sedum, which is just about to open. If you've grown Autumn Joy Sedum in your garden, you know that is a pollinator's dream in late summer. Back behind the Eastern Redbud is a drift of Rockin' Blue Suede Shoe Salvia and another blue stem grass, but this one,
Blackhawks.
Blackhawks, and it's already going to seed, so you can see how it's opening up there. And right next to that is another meadow rue. Some more lavender mist, also going to seed, so we'll collect those seeds. This rose right here is Gertrude Jekyll, a David Austin rose. probably our thorniest rose in the garden.
Ooh, she's mean.
A drift of Veronica. Invincible Lace. This is a lace cap Annabelle type hydrangea. Blooms purple. These are past their prime. It's a beautiful little hydrangea. Some phlox that are past their prime there. Serendipity allium kind of jumping throughout the bed here, bringing that pollinator heaven to this area. Again, they're kind of past their peak right now. Lamb's ear. A new for 2024 is a Superbena called what, Christopher?
Cherry Burst.
Cherry Burst Superbena. And behind that is James L. Austin, which is another pink rose. There's a bud just opening in the back there. And there's Mary Austin Rose to the right. Behind all of that, vertical evergreen accent is a gold cone juniper. Next to that is a traditional wine and roses, spirea. Peony, lamb's ear. This is a quick fire hydrangea. It looks a little bit wonky because of all the things in our garden. This seems to be a favorite of the deer. The deer really seem to like quick fire hydrangea. Verbena bonariensis we have throughout our garden. It brings a beautiful, tall, but not dense, ethereal quality throughout the garden. And repeating things throughout the garden brings a sense of cohesion. So even if you have a lot of stuff going on, if you have that repetition, it's really going to bring a nice cohesion to the garden. This is our Trumnar spruce. And this is a cross between a blue spruce and a Serbian spruce. And I love the color on it and I love the structure on it. It's just a great centerpiece for this east border. In front of that is a drift of Supertunia Vista Jazzberry and another drift of the Artist Blue Floss Flower. That sculpture there is from Grandin Road. It's an iron sculpture I gave to Christopher for an anniversary gift. Right here is Bloomerang Pink, which is just getting established this year. I'm interested to see what it does. It didn't really bloom for us, but we'll see how it does next year. More quick fire hydrangeas, so we're repeating the quick fire hydrangea, which also means we are repeating the snack for the deer. A drift of Nosferatu daylilies, unplugged So Blue salvia, that's right. More verbena, a pinky winky hydrangea that was just planted last year. Again, there's that vertical interest of an arborvitae repeated on both sides of the border. So this border is quite long and there is some symmetry to it, but it's not exact. There's repetition to bring cohesion. Serendipity alliums, Peachy Keen Superbena. This right here is a North Winds panicum ornamental grass. It's got its seed heads out. It blows in the wind. It's beautiful. It is one of my favorite ornamental grasses in the garden. Autumn Joy Sedum, Lemon Coral Sedum down front. This right here is Blue Boa Agasaki, a pollinator's dream. Purple Leaf Sand Cherry. I don't think this is long for our garden. We have plans to replace it at some point. We're just waiting for the perfect thing to come along. What we replace it with will definitely be a dark leafed specimen because we like the weight that brings. Lamb's ear, Firelight Tidbit. This Agastaki right here is called Crazy Fortune, and it has variegated leaves, which makes it very interesting. Behind that is Lemony Lace Elderberry, bringing a very nice pop of chartreuse to this corner of the garden. A birch tree. On this Essex trellis right here is Crown Princess Margarita, which it appears she has been eaten, and we're going to have to reevaluate our deer pressure situation. Serendipity allium. This right here is Lichtfield Angel, another David Austin rose. It's a beautiful color with a lovely fragrance. A drift of Baptisia, something lemonade.
Pink lemonade.
Pink lemonade. Milkweed, bee balm, another pinky winky, winterberry back there. And down here we have Invincibelle Garnetta, which is another Annabelle hydrangea. This one blooms later in the season. I do not believe Proven Winners is producing this any longer. So if you see one out and you're interested in an Annabelle type hydrangea that blooms later in the season, grab it because I don't think it's going to be available. Right here is our drift of hardy hibiscus. Very awesome. Candy Crush and Evening Rose.
Got it.
And so in front of it, you'll notice it's quite empty. We had just pulled out some ornamental grass that proved to be too aggressive for our taste. Actually, here's a little sprig of it left right here.
Pull it.
We're going to have to get it. And we're going to fill this with compost, and we have a hedge of mini mauvettes coming in, which will be really pretty. Above that, this glowing tree is a bald cypress, and it caps off with another winter gem boxwood.
All right, so regrouping here at the arch. We're going to move over into an area that's going to become more of a dappled shade area. When we found this pagoda dogwood at Gardener's Supply last year, we knew it had to make the 2.5-hour journey back with us in the car. It's doing okay. It's got a little bit of leaf curl on it because it's in so much sun, but as this begins its horizontal branching, this area is going to be cast with a beautiful dappled shade, and that will be very suitable for the pink Gatsby oak leaf hydrangea over there, the Dandyman color wheel rhododendron, this lovely drift of lady's mantle, and I did daringly plant some Princess Nubia ajuga. I really like that kind of cool color with the pink flecks on it that will spread out and fill in between. There's some Empress Wu Hosta, Boom Chocolata geranium that are a bit tired at the end of the season. They've got a little powdery mildew going on. Another Winecraft Gold Smoke Bush, which we did not intend to become like the other smoke bush. So we're gonna try trimming this down and keeping it shaped. Tucked right here is something that we found on one of our gardening adventures just recently. It's another Thalictrum or meadow rue called Thalictrum delavayi. I'm working on the pronunciation right now. I'm gonna let this go to seed because I would love to add a bit more of this super wispy ethereal color and shape throughout the garden. We repeated the same planting in that urn. It's actually the same urn tucked underneath there. Above that is a Ruby Falls Weeping Redbud that looks so nice here at the corner of the terrace. And it also really sets a beautiful backdrop for the Sublime hydrangeas. This is newly planted last year. Were these quartz?
They were quartz.
They were quartz. They put out an incredible limey color that stays. They don't brown out the same way as some of the other Annabelle type hydrangeas.
And before we go on, Christopher, we should just remind the people watching that everything from that Hetzi juniper on the left-hand side of the screen to the right is all brand new last year. This whole terrace and patio was just installed last June.
Yep, last June. Behind that is a big drift of Walker's Low Catmint. It is one of our favorite perennials. It's so reliable. This was all cut with a hedge trimmer at the end of its first flush, which I believe was just in June. So this flushes back beautifully, gives so much nice color. This is a small hedge of Midnight Wine Shine. We flanked both sides of this path with it for a little bit of pseudo formality. Behind that is 5 Lady of Shalott roses. They have the greatest orangey color, beautiful scent, and we are going to be working on a, not trellis, we don't want to cover up the wall with something too structural. A support system. So
I'm thinking maybe some eye hooks in the wall with some
wire,
some, yeah. Can we get a close-up of one of the blooms?
Oh yeah.
I love this rose.
And
Super
that,
healthy too.
That gorgeous sound you're hearing is from the Katerina fountain. This is a Campagna International fountain. We wanted something that had substance, had some style, but wasn't too ornamental. We didn't want, you know, something too floof.
Yeah, nothing too ornate.
Nothing too, that's a good word. Nothing too ornate. And this has just a nice clean look to it. It's a lot of fun to set up. It's about 750 pounds. It came in the largest shipping box I've ever seen in my life. Hop across the path here. We have some more of the Sprinter boxwood, the Verbena bonariensis. Most of this reseeded itself. I did pop 2 or 3 seedlings in. They're flanking the weeping white spruce. This is something that we just planted last year, as everything was. It was rather small. It's put on a bit of growth, and we have it staked. If anyone watching has experience with the smaller specimens of weeping white spruce, my question to you is, how long do you stake it before they take off into that vertical structure on their own and don't need the staking anymore?
Or, I mean, does it need to be staked right now, I guess is the question.
Right, that's the question.
We know like a weeping Norway would have to be staked to remain vertical,
Right.
but does a weeping white spruce need to be staked to remain vertical?
Correct. Here are the Tottering by Gently David Austin roses. What's great about these is they are a single rose. They only have 5 petals per bloom. They're the newest rose that we've planted in our garden. And next year, it's gonna be great to see these all flushed out and full of this yellowy, buttery color. Some more of the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry into Walker's Low. Again, we do like to repeat some of our big features in the garden. It gives it cohesion, so we can add in different roses, different shrubs, but we have a little bit of the color tying things together. This trellis has a Sensation honeysuckle on it that just finished its 2nd bloom. It smelled so good. You could smell it all the way over on the terrace in the morning. And then it's gonna turn into this really cool, or the blooms turn into really cool little red berries. So it's fun. You get a little extra season of interest there. Some lamb's ear here, right below the Boscobel David Austin rose.
I love this rose.
The coral, the apricot tones, the blushy pink on the outside, and the fragrance is incredible. It also has a very matte blue-green leaf that kind of is a little different than the shinier green leaves of some of the other roses. These were just planted last year, so they're tiny, but they'll come back next year, and we're expecting this to be quite a powerful drift. This is a tiny dahlia from Proven Winners. I'm gonna pop the name up on the screen because, the name is escaping me. In between are some of the reseeded foxgloves. It's Sutton's apricot. They bloomed very nicely. It was the first time that we had planted foxgloves, so it's exciting to see the new ones looking so healthy, and next year to have their bloom since they're a biennial. Some more verbena, Sprinter boxwoods that cap off this bed underneath the Green Gable black gum or tupelo tree. We added this because it has a really nice oval structure as it grows. It'll be quite a large tree. But the other thing about tupelos is their fall color. They will turn a very vibrant red. Below that, you're seeing the Steady Eddie viburnum. It's a very unique kind of viburnum. It's a single file viburnum. You only see 1 row of petals in each bloom cluster. But the coolest thing is they do not stop blooming the entire summer. They will keep going. Just when you think they're ready to bloom out, here comes the new ones. This is a tiny little specimen of Tater Tot arborvitae that traveled in Eric's suitcase back from a garden trip that he went
back
on.
from DeKalb, Illinois, when I went to Proven Winners last November. I put it in my carry-on.
I'm hopping in here so I can show you this ornamental grass. This is something new that we picked up, and I'm going to find the tag for it because it has a fun name. This is Wedgwood Blue Angelonia, the summer snapdragon. Really nice kind of bi-color effect. These are Snowfire Angelonia, not Angelonia, Aronia, which unfortunately have attracted a lot of attention from the deer.
I think it's rabbits.
Is it rabbits?
It's definitely rabbits because they're eating the leaves.
Oh, you're right.
From the bottom.
Okay.
Just notice how there's no leaves on the bottom of this one, but there's leaves on the top. And I think if it was a deer, it would have been chewed from the top down.
Yes. So,
but also, I've seen the rabbit.
Oh, okay. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get some wire cages and I'm going to wrap these up now. It's not the most attractive thing, but I'm going to put my winter protection cages on these so that they have a chance to reestablish before the winter comes. In front of those is one of our new favorite plants of the season, the Midnight Sun Weigela. This color stays all summer long. It does have, you know, kind of these sunset tones, which don't necessarily go with most of our color scheme, but somehow these do. They just settle in so nicely. It's such a beautiful, beautiful color. I'm standing right in front of a drift of Midnight Masquerade penstemon that was cut back. This sends out really tall, beautiful pink flowers on dark stems. It's really, really nice. And here is the centerpiece of the garden, or will be the centerpiece of the garden, Quickfire Fab hydrangeas. These can get up to 8 feet. So it's going to be a very nice mass of fantastic white blooms that turn pink. I will not trip over that.
Careful.
Oops. Moving over here, we have a drift of reminiscent pink roses. It's a new rose from Proven Winners. Lovely scent, lovely easy care shrub rose. Really pretty color there. We move here through some more of the catmint around this obelisk trellis, which had Stillwater's clematis on it. Now it has its really cool fuzzy little seed heads. And this group of roses is a David Austin shrub rose called the Ancient Mariner. I'm going to climb in here.
Oh,
So beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance. And this gives you a little sense of, you know, we have an easy care rose, David Austin roses. They're not that difficult to take care of.
Yeah, I think they're pretty easy care too.
But, you know, these you might want a deadhead, where the reminiscent roses are designed to continue blooming if you don't want a deadhead. But we do it anyway because you just want to tidy things up. This lovely hedge here of the Rockin' Deep Purple Salvia and this single Blonde Ambition grass are going to be going away.
It's an annual for us.
Yes, this is an annual. This is a perennial. We'll find a lovely home for it. And this is the Rockin' Playin' the Blues Salvia. As annuals, they'll be going. And there is an exciting new addition coming in the form of hydrangeas. So look for that to come soon.
So moving to the back of the yard, we have a Princeton Century Ginkgo that was planted last year. This is, I mean, I really am impressed with this ginkgo. It suffered 2 frosts this spring. It had pushed out its leaves. Frost killed them off. It pushed out a second set of leaves. Frost killed them off. And then it pushed out a third set of leaves and managed to put on some growth. So I'm super impressed with the Princeton Century Ginkgo. But let's go along the back berm. You'll notice on the back berm that there is a repetition of green giant arborvitaes. Our property leads up to a forever wild area, and we wanted it to be a natural border. We didn't want to do anything too strict and straight and lined up like soldiers, so it's kind of mixed a bunch of different things together. So we have our green giant arborvitaes, a drift of double take orange quince, which I love this quince. It doesn't spread. It doesn't have thorns and has a beautiful corally orange bloom in the spring that is so intense and so iridescent that it's hard to photograph. This is a velvet cloak smoke bush with some faded blooms on it. River birch. Underneath is our sea spray juniper. A drift of Supertunia mini vista indigos. I think it might be a little wet for them right here. They're not really thriving, but this is a full sun location. Satin orchid. Rose of Sharon. Blooms are not open up yet for the day. A butterfly bush. This is another blue stem. instant karma elderberry. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story where I was standing in the dining room and I saw this shaking, and we had thought it was deer damage that was coming through. But when I came out, it was a groundhog on his hind legs just chowing down. So now we know what that damage is, and we'll have to figure out a way to remedy that.
And it's a cool shrub. It's got great variegated leaves and should be getting really big. Does anyone have a suggestion for groundhog deterring, or should we replace it?
We have a morning light miscanthus grass, another boxwood, a drift of cerinthe grown from seed, a drift of double play. Is it Big Bang?
It's Big Bang.
Double play Big Bang spirea. This right here I love. It's a red obelisk beech tree. That's going to be a great centerpiece on the berm back here. Its new growth is red, and then it fades to a dark purpley green. Another beautiful centerpiece, beautifully shaped, is this opening day viburnum. This is a first edition shrub, and I see a Japanese beetle on it. Candy corn spirea. This is adagio grass, backed by blue chiffon rose of Sharon. This is sonic bloom pink weigela. There's a small hedge of little lime hydrangeas that were just planted this year. I think it's probably a little wet for them. That's why they're dropping leaves from the bottom. We're going to reassess. We'll see how they do next year, if we need to relocate them or amend this place in the garden somehow, because it is the lowest point. This is, if we get rain, this is kind of where the water tends to sit. Milkweed, again, another elderberry. Some people are like, elderberries do amazing for us. They're nonstop. Elderberries for us are really struggle. I don't know why. Boxwood, double pink rose from Proven Winners. This is the drift of Storm Cloud Amsonia. Beautiful blue blooms in the spring. Another Northwind panicum, kind of ties it into the other side of the garden over there. Underplanted here is Tough Stuff hydrangeas. These we just planted in a video a couple weeks ago, and they seem to be doing very well. Pinky Winky. This is a Jolly Good Clematis on a tutor from Gardener Supply. There's some Huskers Red underneath this grouping of river birch. This is Cherry Chocolate, hardy hibiscus. The spireas that line the back are the ones that the builders had put in our foundation bed in the front. So they just kind of went in the back. We don't know what kind they are. Iris, sea spray juniper, and a black pussy willow kind of caps off the end with the green giant arborvitae. So you'll notice on each side of the pathway we have some anchors of a winter interest of a sprinter boxwood. Right here is Flavorette Honey Apricot, a new rose from Proven Winners. I really enjoy this foliage color, and the blooms are a gorgeous peachy pink. It's Flavorette because you're supposed to be able to eat it. I have tasted it. It's kind of very sweet. It's a little bit grassy. I think you would use it more as a decoration than more as a main course. There's another ornamental grass behind that. Is that Prairie Winds?
It is Cheyenne Sky.
I'm not even close. Okay. Jordan birdcage trellis around our Stand By Me lavender clematis. These struggle for us. Does anyone else experience a little struggle with these? We've tried cutting them back. We've tried not cutting them back.
Is it just a matter of time? Do we need to give it a year or two?
Yeah, they've been in the ground about a year now. But moving on, tiny quickfire hydrangea, the smallest panicle hydrangea that has been bred to date. Blooms on new wood. These were just sent out to us in the spring. Right here is a Japanese white pine. I love the needles on this. I love the cones on this. I love the structure of it. I love everything about it. Easily prunable to keep size in check, to keep shape in check. Again, we've repeated the Verbena bonariensis. This is another spirea. This is double play artisan. Surefire white begonia with a Juneberry or a shadblow bush behind it. Bronze fennel, a beautiful annual fennel that we plant in our garden for pollinators, for that light, wispy, ethereal quality. Really enjoy it. Christopher, I'm going to go right behind where you're standing to the paperbark maple tree. which I chose as I love the bark on it. I love appealing bark, and down here you can see it's got that-
Appealing bark.
It's very appealing. You can see the cinnamon colored bark that peels. And then we'll go this way. The centerpiece of this bed is going to be the Sugar Shack button bush once that gets established. And again, another very impressive specimen because it also, like the ginkgo, suffered through 2 frosts that decimated its leaves both times. So this is its 3rd flush of leaves for the season, and it was able to put on growth. So very impressive. And it even has some blooms. Walker's Low Catmint, another sprinter. This right here is Earth Angel. Let me see if I can, these blooms are a little past their prime, but look at, if you can imagine that, not looking aged, it's a beautiful, fantastic bloom. Foxgloves, I almost said foxwoods. Foxgloves and boxwoods are underneath this prairie fire crabapple. More of that bronze fennel. Pollinator heaven over here. As we turn the corner, we have a drift of Supertunia Mini Vista Indigo. We have a small hedge of Sesky Gold Birchleaf Spirea. They're not doing great for us. They're hardy in zones 2 through 7. We're zone 5B. I think we have them in too much sun. I think because this is full sun all day, I think they probably should have been getting afternoon shade. But we have a plan, and we'll keep you posted. Mr. Poppins is a pollinator for the berry heavy golds that we're going to come upon shortly. Some beautiful Gomphrena, zinnias. These are Bennery's Giant Purple and Bennery's Giant Lime. Purple Pillar, Rose of Sharon, budding up, not blooming yet, which I'm surprised about. If you look between the Purple Pillar and the Diana Contorted Larch, you will see more of the zinnias, but in between there, as we're waiting for them to get bigger, are berry heavy gold winter berries. So as you're waiting for your shrubs to get established and grow, it's a great way to take up that space as a plant annuals, and that's what we did in this bed. More Gomphrena, Supertunia Mini Vista Pink, a trio of Little Lime Punch, which is an improved version of Little Lime, and it gets a little bit deeper, richer pink at the end of the season. More Verbena bonariensis, and Walker's Low Catmint.
Welcome back to the front of the house. Here we have a lovely ornamental pile of 5 yards of compost. We made the switch to compost as mulch a couple years ago after using bark mulch for a while. We wanted to enrich the soil, and also the compost keeps its color through the season, where bark mulch gets kind of those bleachy spots on it. Originally, we just placed this right over the bark mulch, and when we're planting now, you can't even see where that bark mulch was. Behind that, in front of the garage door, is a lovely organized hedge of Invincibelle Spirit 2 and Invincibelle Ruby hydrangeas. At this time of season, they're never going to look so hot in nursery cans.
We have a plan for those.
There's a plan.
You'll find
and that
out.
plan is 20 feet in that direction. The 2 containers that we have, they're 26-inch containers that are now very, very full with these Blue Point junipers that are going to be going in the ground very soon, as in the next week or two, with Supertunia Vista Jazzberry and the Rockin' Deep Purple Salvia. Eric had chosen these to go together, not just for the look, but also Rockin' Deep Purple can hold its own against the Vista Jazzberry, which is incredibly vigorous. So we start moving around this swoop, and you can see we have another winter gem, just to bring a little of that across the driveway, that same winter interest. More of the Blue Artist Ageratum, Walker's Low Catmint, a lovely David Austin rose called Gabriel Oak. It has kind of smaller leaves. They're a little on the satin side. They're not as shiny, but a really great bloomer for us. It had a little bit of a bug damage this year, so it hasn't bloomed as prolifically, but I think next year this is going to be a superstar. More of the Firelight Tidbit, which is starting to take on that really nice jewel tone pink that it will get. A piglet grass that's similar to Hamlin, which I see more commonly. It's just a little smaller than Hamlin. The weeping Norway spruce that we are being very strict with in our staking so we can get it as tall as possible before letting it just go into its natural weepy form. A coral charm peony that I'm very excited to see. I've always wanted one. And this is very tiny just from a bare root. Some sun patience. There's a new quince in here called Eternal White. That's a double white flower. Very, very small, so we'll see how they do. Snowberry, starting to take on the pink in its berries. Really, really pretty. Limelight Prime. This is a Shiloh Splash River Birch, either a large shrub or small tree that we are going to let be whatever it wants to be, because with leaves like this, it gets priority. Love it. So we here below it have the Yuki Snowflake Deutzia, really cool leaves on that. Fall in Love Sweetly Anemone starting to bloom over here. Night Embers Sedum, a hole where we recently pulled something out. Limelight Prime, and another pillar white Rose of Sharon, also not blooming yet, but really great structure, so we're going to let it do its thing. Walker's Low Catmint. This is Going Bananas Daylilies, which I thought would be really fun to pick up yellow color from this forsythia that will have long finished its yellow blooming by the time it's summertime and the daylilies get going. This is the Vanderwolf Pine. It's super soft needles. It's really fun to play with because they are really soft and tickly. There's a bicolor green and blue on the needles. I love the face Eric's making at me for saying tickly
Well, I
needles.
didn't know you were going to tickle it and play with it.
But they're really cute. It's such a fun tree. And this was an interesting case where the leader didn't make it through a winter a couple years ago and we didn't know what was going to happen. And then it picked one, and there's that leader, and it's doing beautiful because it is supposed to be Vanderwolf's pyramidal pine. Awesome. So beyond the forsythia, we have Claire Austin just opening. Normally a little bit more white than this.
I know, she looks very yellow.
Very yellow.
Not a yellow rose, typically.
Not a ton of sun happening for her, so this might not end up being her final home. This is a wild bergamot that has taken on a little powdery mildew, but it bloomed really beautiful, little kind of pale purple, and lots of bees on there. Some Liatris past its prime. This will be cut back shortly. And a Dowick purple columnar beech, another dark purple beech that doesn't grow super fast, but eventually should get to about 40 feet, about 5 feet wide. Down here from seed is a raspberry daiquiri agastache. I wasn't sure how my seedlings were going to do, but they did quite well. I could have cut it back to let it reflush, but they were doing fine. And this is the very lovely named, but neither of us can ever remember it,
I think it's like a
Baptisia.
bubbly...
Sparkling bubbles.
Sparkling bubbles.
Sparkling sapphires.
Maybe. It does bloom blue. It's a blue blooming Baptisia.
Love it. This is Ember Waves, Golden Western Arborvitae. We planted this one because we knew we wanted something with some heft and a little bit of a different color than we had on this side of the house.
We need some chartreuse in this bed.
Yeah, definitely some chartreuse. And it was very green when we got it. So the fact that there's so much of the gold on there tells us it's growing very happily. Another Deutzia. This is some purple Chablis lamium that's been nibbled upon. Yeah. A Neptune Nepeta or catmint that was cut back. It was time to go back to the ground, and it'll come back with a little bit of a different form than some of our other catmints. It's really a cool plant.
Purple fountain grass.
Purple fountain grass. Whoa.
Classic.
Classic, not knowing that. This is a very special plant for us. It's the first thing we ever bought together for the garden. It's a French hybrid lilac, unnamed other than French hybrid lilac. It's a really pretty purple flower, smells wonderful, very traditional looking lilac, and it's growing very nicely here. Right behind here is a super cool blue feathers Hinoki cypress.
I'm going to come around this side, Christopher.
Cool. Little,
just let go of the grass.
Little star-shaped needles. Should get, I think, 3 by 3 in time, nice and slow. I really like that one. Behind that is a Bartzella Ito Peony, Wine and Roses White Giallo, in with this verbena. This is a strawberry milkshake sedum, something
Really
that
pretty.
we picked up at the end of the season last year. It's great. It's a really cool little plant. This is 3 Emily Bronte David Austin roses. We do actually have a bloom going on right now. Really nice. Great fragrance on this. I would say she's a wild grower.
She is very vigorous.
Very vigorous. Looking really good over the dressed up evening gown. Other side of the garden, we have the dressed up ball gown, frilly leaf heuchera. This is dressed up evening gown with the dark color.
Yep.
Really nice. Behind that, you can see on the tutere that is tipping over under the weight of the Lemon Appeal Thunbergia. That is a very vigorous vine, but such a pretty color.
I know, it's coming out here into the front of the bed.
Oh, let's leave it. It looks good. And here we have some more of the Gomphrena. That's Wildberry Heuchera tucked in behind, an Arctic Fire Dogwood, and this is the Parkland Pillar Birch that does just that. It's a birch tree that grows in a pillar to soften up the edge of the house.
So starting here at the front of our west side of our fence is Woolerton Old Hall, a small David Austin climbing rose. This was sent to us from Heirloom Roses at the beginning of the season as a very small 1 gallon completely defoliated specimen. And we knew it would do well because they only send stuff with gorgeous root systems, and it sure did. It has shot up probably 4 feet. We have it on a half Essex trellis against the fence. Smells lovely, has a beautiful, what color? It's like a very pale apricot, maybe creamy.
Creamy amber apricot.
Yeah, that's a great rose. Under that is Rockindy Purple Salvia, some more vertical evergreen interest. This right here is a new for 2024 perennial from Proven Winners called Silver Lining Artemisia, a little sprinter boxwood, and then what I like to call our famous limelight hydrangea hedge, which we do have a video all about how we planted this, why we planted it, and so on. So you can find that. But we're going to take a turn over here beyond the Parkland pillar, more Verbena bonariensis, and Dark Night Alyssum, or is it Violet Night?
Violet Night.
Violet Night. This right here was a birthday gift. It is a Carolina Sweetheart Redbud. It's not showing its variegation yet. The grower did say that that comes in time. So I'm excited for that. And once that gets bigger, it's going to cast shade into our shade garden area, which you'll notice is Morning Light Miscanthus, Spilled Wine Weigela, Apple Brandy Coleus. Back here, tucked in, is a Sweet and Low Saratoga?
Sweet box.
Sweet box. It's an evergreen that blooms. Gatsby Moon Oak Leaf Hydrangea. Here we have some more of the Meadow Rue that's gone to seed. Right here in front, this beautiful burst of chartreuse is Sun King. Is it Sun King Aurelia?
Aurelia.
Yes. We do have hellebore in here that'll show up in the late winter, early spring when all of this foliage is not here, because that Sun King is a perennial, so that gets cut back to the ground, if you can believe it. Along the very front edge is a purple geranium. Is it New Hampshire?
Yes, it is.
Right here is our blood good Japanese maple that we're going to keep very pruned, very tidy. We're going to try and keep it very airy and architectural. It does have a little bit of a leaf spot.
Phyllosticata leaf spot, very
Yeah.
common in humidity, but very easily treatable.
Yeah, easily treatable. Empress Wu hostas. That little bright pop of chartreuse hosta down there is Echo of the Sun, a new for 2024 hosta from Proven Winners. And in here is Peppermint Patty,
Miss Piggy.
or Miss Piggy. Peppermint Patty is the new one. Miss Piggy is the original, putting on a bloom stalk. So this is, and some Brunnera. So this is kind of our shade bed. Moving this way, right here, is it still filming?
Yeah.
Okay, you can just edit that part out. So moving this way onto the patio area, we have our 2x8 beds from Gardener Supply with the trellis on top and some lights. Morning glory is growing on them. We had broccoli and cabbage in here that we harvested, so we threw in some geraniums. We have our zucchini, our 2024 annuals that are doing very well in their aquapot lights. This is the apricot selenia begonia that's in full sun right now. Really is shining this year. Surprised me. Over here, blooming for the first time ever for us, and these bees are in heaven. This is an artichoke that we let go to flower. Those bees are so happy. Really excited about that.
It has to be one of the coolest flowers I've ever seen.
Yeah. We have our tomatoes and peppers, our strawberries, some rosemary. It's the end of the season for us, so it's getting a little bit sad and raggedy looking. What's not sad and raggedy looking, though, over here is our corn, which we have harvested some, and it is delicious, but we really got to get in here and get the rest of it. Hiding behind the corn is a hedge of Invincible lace hydrangeas, which were just planted a few weeks ago. Some beans, morning glories, kale, and that basically takes us around the entire potager area, so let's head up to the terrace.
Let's do it.
Finish off this tour up here on the terrace with our apple blossom double delight begonia right here.
Double delight, that's what it's called.
Double delight. Our little herb pot right here.
That we're using quite a bit. I'm very impressed with us.
Yes. Dark salmon, geraniums. Over here in this trio of containers. Now forgive the end of season tiredness of these containers, but I think they're holding up. They're going to get switched soon. We usually switch to autumn or fall containers Labor Day weekend or that week or the weekend after. So it's coming up. They only have about a week left. We'll probably keep this though. Rockin' Deep Purple, geranium, Super Junior Mini Vista Indigo. This right here is Maritime Heliotrope. Super Junior Mini Vista Sweet Sangria, Mulberry Nemesia. This is some sort of Superbena. It might be the Superbena Rosé. Not sure. This right here is Patio Peach, a bonfire Patio Peach. We'll overwinter it in this container. We'll tuck it up underneath the covering over here, put it in the corner and kind of protect it. Also some more Super Junior Mini Vista Indigo. I'm going to try and get back here. Moffat Blue Juniper. This will stay in the container. I'm thinking Christmas lights on it this winter. More geraniums, Super Junior Mini Vista Indigo, more alyssum. Over here is a variegated leaf beech. The new growth is variegated. I bought this on Etsy from a guy in Oswego, New York. Came as a little stick over the winter, kept it in the garage. We'll keep it in the container again for another year. Probably next fall, fall 2024, we'll plant it out. Meyer Lemon Tree, Rockin' Deep Purple Salvia, Super Junior Mini Vista Indigo, Newly Noir Coleus. This looks amazing paired with anything pink. If you love pink in your containers, this brings a great weight to it because that has that undertone of pink to it. Asian Council Tree. Underneath is Pink Cashmere Superbena, new for 2024. This container right here is definitely part sun to part shade. So they're not getting as much sun. I don't see the performance we were expecting, but I blame that on lighting. Super Junior Orchid Hoopla, or Hoopla Orchid.
Hoopla Vivid Orchid.
Oh, there's a Vivid in there. Mulberry Nemesia. Super Junior Mini Vista Aquamarine.
Ultramarine.
Ultramarine. Coming back here, we saw these from the outside. Surefire White Begonias in our hanging baskets with a Wicked Witch Coleus. I love them. I don't think I'll put them in these baskets again. They are a little bit messy, so if you don't mind, that's fine. But for my taste, at least, I probably next year in these containers will do maybe the Selenia Apricot.
That sounds good to me. They're so pretty.
Asparagus Fern, Fuchsia, Pegasus Begonia, and Creeping Jenny. And Christopher, if you back up, we can do this last group of containers over here. Velveteen Coleus, again, that beautiful pop of pink. Another one that's great with pink in the container. Surefire White Begonias, Browalia, Endless Illuminations Browalia, and a mix of Rocapoco Double Impatience Coral, and I believe it's either pink or purple. But that's kind of our containers up here on the terrace. Wow, we did the whole tour.
We did it. Success. Thank you for joining us for our full late August garden tour.
Again, I'm Eric.
And I'm Christopher.
And we're Grow For Me 5B.
Thanks for growing with us.